Religion is one tree with many branches. As branches, you may say, religion are many, but as a tree, religion is only one. Today, I, Priyansha,
And I, Virat, welcome you all to this lecture on Gandhi's religious and secular practice, a view from Sidelines of Partition by Professor Sucheta Mahajan.
this particular endeavor is a collaborative effort between the Department of Philosophy, University of Delhi, and Darshan, the Society of Philosophy, Ramjas College. The rigor and academic stature of the Department of Philosophy is not unknown, and the same with no reservation can be said for Darshan, which has a trajectory of holding dozens of academically rigorous events every year. Today's lecture is a link of the same pursuit, which would conclude a series of lectures on the Western Indian, modern Indian philosopher, with deliberation on a man whose authority of thought made one of the largest and most powerful empire of all time kneel down before ahimsa.
The dawn when the land was bathed in crimson red, and doors and hearts remained shut alike. There were only a few lamps of hope, harmony, and a secular future that still flickered, and Gandhi was undoubtedly one of the foremost amongst them. Today, as the light of comradeship dims, it is imperative to revisit a past where the hate of the sword was conquered by ahimsa and karuna of hearts.
Now I would request Keshav sir to please felicitate Sucheta ma'am with a small token of appreciation.
I would also like to request Dr. Amit Kumar Pradhan to please present a token of appreciation to Professor Keshav. We aim to emphasize that it's an interdisciplinary approach, seeking insights from a scholar renowned for her expertise in modern Indian history and Gandhi from a historical perspective. We intend to facilitate knowledge transmission between disciplines seamlessly while preserving the core nature of philosophy. Professor Sucheta Mahajan stands as a beacon of erudition in this realm of modern Indian scholarship, revered globally for her profound insights and invaluable contributions with a distinguished tenure as a professor at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Her intellectual prowess has illuminated countless national and international forums through captivating lectures and scholarly discourse. Renowned as one of the foremost historians of India, Professor Mahajan's literary oeuvre is testament to her scholarly eminence, comprising several seminal works that have left an indelible mark on the landscape of Indian historiography. Some of her very significant works are as follows: India's struggle for independence, India after independence, towards freedom, independence and partition, the erosion of colonial power in India, composite culture and multicultural society, and education for social change, MPF and child labor. On this, I would like to request ma'am to please enlighten us further.
Yeah, it is we are very happy to Department of Philosophy, very happy to invite Professor Sucheta Mahajan. And much more than this, I am very happy to see the students from the Ramjas College. First time they are visiting to the department. Definitely, this will be a motivation for them coming to the university and sitting with the other scholars of department. That will be, I believe, it is definitely it is a motivating kind of lecture. We are very thankful to the Ramjas College coming for. Initially, a little bit suspected and all, whether to hold it since the practice is not established. Then I thought that it is also has definitely have the impact on the students having this kind of activity. And more than that, the today's lecture also it is one kind of the practical implication. It is there, the kind of discussion. That's what I believe. That too, we are inviting the scholars like the Sucheta Mahajan, not like that regular kind of lecture kind of thing, just telling something, informing something, and all. You're taking some notes, and not like that. It should be on some kind of insight which can be have some kind of impact on us to rethink about ourselves where we are there. Very particularly, when you are talking about religion, you know, in the name of religion, what is going on all over the world. Much more, the deadly combination. Religion also identified with the nationalism, religious nationalism, becoming a rallying point for to resolve the most of the problems. And this is also, it has its own problems is created. In the name of religion, we have seen lot of authoritarianism, fascism, and also violent kind of tendencies, intolerant towards other, it is there. But at the same time, you know it very well. Very often people used to say, every religion is teaching good. It is love towards other, compassion, love, and initially religion, philosophy of religions like that it is there. At the same time, the always this kind of complexity and the contradictory positions also there about talking about the religion. And when come to the way religions also nothing like that. Most of time we believe that thing religion is eternal, unchanging. It is not like that. Religion never be Sanatan. It is also goes on changing. You look at the evolution of religion from the savage society, primitive society to the modern society or civilized society. Religion plays much more role and also much more organized from the primitive to the modern. But the evolution also can be seen in terms of the realization of some kind of normative end. That is also very much it is there and all. But however, there are modern times, very particularly enlightenment period, and the people who are fed up with the what is happened in the name of religion in the medieval time, the way utilized by the state, how to exploit the people, and that level you know it very well. And that level, religion seems to be negative kind of connotation it is carried because of not only dogmatism, irrationality, and also immorally exploiting the people, even however great any kind of religion it is there. That's why it is a public discourse, at least to political, at least academic discourses, religion look a little bit negative. Very particularly struggles of the progressive struggles. They know it very well, religion is a problem. But however, in a modern times, we can see that one, there is a problem by negating religion means negating the society, negating our tradition. Religion is a driving social force. It is not only value system, it is a culture, and at that level, very few people in the country, they bring into the forefront of the religion as an idea. Of course, religion is identified with a lot of problems, social evils, it is there. And almost all our social reformers to the time of the nationalists and also even today, they identify the importance of the religion. In a modern time, yeah, you know it very well, all the either Arya Samaj or Brahma Samaj or Arabindo or Vivekananda, anybody, they identify the importance of religion. At the same time, they critical about the social evils in a different level, either sati or it is a caste system or idol worship or whatever it may be. But among the two thinkers who are prominent to discuss, bring the idea of the religion in a forefront and also very seriously identify the religion and being the different kind of meaning, this one is a Gandhi and other is Ambedkar. Gandhi identified within the religious world, within a Hinduism, he wanted to give the universal meaning for that one, where like caring for the Vedanta Krishna it can be accommodated. That level is where Ambedkar tried to talk about. There is a problem with totally redefining religion. The religion in terms of the godless and soulless religion and also religion as a righteous social force. There he identified with the different kind of with the tradition or religion which stands for the reason. And that there he tried to find out the such roots in the within Indian tradition, where Buddhism to certain extent, and he identified reflecting on Buddhism. He tried to develop that one. When come to the Gandhi kind of philosophy and the practicality is different, and also the way it is appropriated Gandhi is also different. Because of it gives Gandhi himself also gives the scope, the way it is the kind of language he tried to use that. One way it is much more universal and also keeping away from the critical about the social practices, untouchability and other kind of practices, caste system in a different fashion. But at the same time, the kind of language used by the Ramaraj or some kind of the Satya is God is Satya, and most of the religious metaphors used, and you know where it is landed, and ultimately the easy to appropriate Gandhi different level. At the same time, they are also negating the Gandhi also we have seen and all. But exactly in this context, today's the madam's lecture, it is there, Gandhi's religious and secular practice. When we are talking about religion, something is different, and when one can see the importance of religion, only one can look at the practice only makes them to be exposing the what is the strength of the thinker, what is the strength of the religion. We can talk so many things about great things about religion, not only to one religion, but all great religion. But you know it very well how religions played a very nasty role in historical kind of the very organized religion, very particularly they played the role. In this context, where Gandhi's kind of strength of the religion can be seen in a context where it is their Indian context and it is a challenging ground, it is there one way the kind of the majoritarian religion and also minorities suppressed that level, one way we can see. But the testing point for the Gandhian philosophy can be seen, or not only Gandhi philosophy or idea of religion can be tested in a context of the partition. The kind of bloodshed it is there, both sides, just in the name of religion. Forget about the partition of the nation, the kind of conflict and the psychological kind of the trauma carried by the both the nations, and in the name of religion, lot of things are there. It become a point for the to mold shaping the nation states, either it is India or Pakistan. Even though you try to solve in between a lot of things that I talk about making secular, or we have to be different kind of understanding about idea of religion, democracy, but these are the recurring themes. It is there, and it that way exactly the scholar make a point that one it is the religious and secular that too in making in a context like the partition where the importance of the Gandhi still we can feel, still we can negotiate to have the better society and also modern society, and also it is some kind of the concern about the fellow human beings rather than intolerating and negating and also dominating the other and also exploiting the other and demeaning the human beings, and also as then a religion seen as a blot on democracy, blot on civilization. Religion also is a possible to have the human flourishing in a different fashion. I hope she will be definitely the title itself it try to indicates like that. She is a very expertise scholar in this field for a long time, even though she came from history, and she also can be connected to the social, cultural, political life and all. Religion has all the meanings she tried to internalize in this kind of lecture. I hope you will be definitely benefited by this lecture. Now I request Sucheta ma'am to start her lecture. Yeah, yes.
Can I be heard? Is that better? All right. Thank you so much. First of all, may I thank the Department of Philosophy in Delhi University for inviting me to the Ramjas College Philosophy Department and Group for co-inviting me. And it's been so many years I have been speaking on these issues, and yet I am quite nervous before this audience because, quite obviously, because there are students of philosophy and here, and though what I'm going to say, I think will, to use a very cliched word, interdisciplinary. I hope it has some of that element, the talk, but still, if you find it very tedious in terms of historical detail, we tend to go more into the detail rather than talk at the level of grand theory. So I'll be happy if at any point anybody can ask me to, stop, and I could always cut down on that. Now, there are many words which I'm using in slightly unorthodox ways. The word secular practice is one. We normally talk about religious practice, but we don't talk about secular practice. And it will be clear very quickly what I mean by that. Also, the whole idea of pinning it or rooting this discussion at a specific juncture in the history of modern and contemporary India, namely around the period of 1946, 47, 48, the period of independence, and along with it, the tragic partition which accompanied it. So it's very specific to that period, the understanding of Gandhi. So it is limited in that sense. I'm sure there will be many of you, for example, who may be more familiar with the Gandhi of Hind Swaraj. My aim here is to create a kind of text, but a text in the sense that, again, it's a bit of a cliche. You know, Gandhi very often said, "My life is my message." So often he used to be asked, "You said this in Hind Swaraj, now you say this. You said this about Hindu-Muslim unity in 1928, now you're saying something else." He said, "I never thought that consistency was a virtue." And he said, if you want to know what I'm saying, what is the Gandhi viewpoint, just go by what I have said last. That is, I'm constantly growing, constantly evolving. I'm not talking about those areas of his life, but you know, it's amazing how much of change there was from the Gandhi of Hind Swaraj to 1940s. He was talking in terms of zamindari, of abolition, of zamindars running away. This was not Gandhi of the trusteeship ideas of 1918. So what I'm just emphasizing here before I begin my story of my little walk with Gandhi in Noakhali is just emphasizing that there are many Gandhis. And this is, if you want to call it, the Gandhi of Noakhali or the Gandhi of partition that we're looking at today afternoon. As I said, Gandhi said very often, my life is my message. That is, don't go by what I said, go by what I did, right? And this life, amazingly, was played out in public, even the most private self for all to inspect. The life text that I propose to share with you this afternoon is, as I said, his mission in Noakhali. But before we move to that very distant corner of the Indian subcontinent, let me ask a couple of questions which I know and try and answer the things which are bound to be there at the top of your mind the moment we talk about Gandhi, religion, secularism, politics. Let's just clear a couple of the cobwebs, if we can call them that, before going into the specific story. For Gandhi, the secular was rooted not in some French notion of secularism, what is known as laïcité, but in a civilizational value of tolerance, acceptance of difference, and the urge to find common ground across the religious spectrum by drawing upon key ideas and practices from different religions. Not very different from what we call the sense in which the Indian Constitution also talks about secularism. Indeed, his understanding premises the secular upon proudly owning up to one's spiritual identity, as much as accepting the same in a person from a different faith. Gandhi, interestingly, never saw this as a contradiction. And hence, we have from Gandhi a very creative interpretation of religion. Rather, I should use the word dharma, because that's the sense in which I'm using the word religion, not, as Professor Keshava rightly pointed out, organized religion, not in the sense of organized religion. And this creative interpretation of Gandhi of dharma drew inspiration from a civilizational ethos of mutual respect and tolerance. And hence, I would argue, and this is something which brings me to what I hope is the contemporary relevance. And by contemporary, I mean today in a very important aspect, the contemporary relevance of walking with Gandhi, of looking at Gandhi, because it is this idea of secularism and this creative interpretation of dharma that Gandhi lived through in these very tumultuous years of independence and partition, which I feel are an important cultural resource for us today. And when I say for us, by us, I assume or presume that those of us who are in this room today are concerned with the challenge which is being posed by communalism of all hues, majoritarian, minoritarian, today, that we find in our society and very often makes us feel very helpless. So it is this idea of religion and the secular that I intend to talk about, not simply normally what we mean by secular, that is the traditional Western sense of it, which is separation of religion from the political or public sphere. Okay. A strange thing happened about 2 decades or more ago, which is that Gandhi got described as an anti-secularist. Very fine psychologist, sociologist, Ashish Nandi, equally fine scholar, T.N. Madan. These may be names which somewhere ring a bell for some of you. Even if they don't, it doesn't matter. The argument which was given was that Gandhi was an anti-secularist. And the reason given for it very clearly was that the argument went something like this. And what was quoted was sentences from Gandhi like, for example, I approach politics, Gandhi said, as everything else in a religious spirit. Truth is my religion and ahimsa is the only way of its realization. But when Gandhi was talking about politics and religious spirit, it was religion in the sense of dharma. One's duty, not organized religion. He didn't mean Hinduism. Also, I found when I was putting together this compendium of documents called Towards Freedom for 1947, I found that when Gandhi made a lot of comments where he sounded secular almost in the Western sense. Let me just give you a sentence from him. He said at one point, religion is a personal matter which should have no place in politics, right? Very straightforward Western kind of statement. He was asked by a correspondent of a newspaper sometime in 1947, what kind of state will India be after independence? And his answer was, I can only say that this India is not the India of my dreams. In the India for whose fashioning I have worked all my life, every man enjoys equality of status, whatever his religion is. And here is the important sentence. He says, the state is bound to be wholly secular. I go so far as to say, Gandhi said, that no denominational educational institution in it should enjoy state patronage. Okay? Now, given this position, given this understanding of religion as dharma, given his talking about, the state being secular, it's difficult to see how Nandi and T.N. Madan can base this argument or this terming of Gandhi as anti-secularist. This was a very famous article called the Anti-Secularist Manifesto. They were pinning it on that one statement of his, which I quoted earlier. I'm quoting it again. If religion has nothing to do with politics, then I, for one, will have nothing to do with it, right? So a very limited reading of it, which I thought, let me just clear one cobweb out of the way, which is, he's not religious in the sense of being anti-secularist. No, not at all. Going back to 1925 for a minute, talking about religious conflict between Hindus and Muslims, Gandhi saw through the machinations of the colonial rulers, the history writing which was encouraged by the colonial rulers, where the past of India was shown as ridden with Hindu-Muslim conflict. Gandhi instead wrote, and I quote a sentence, the two races lived at peace among themselves during the Muslim rule. I would disagree with the term used by him, Muslim rule, but I think it's important that he can see that it's very important today. Every second day our Prime Minister and other people of that kind of thinking tell us about 1,000 years of slavery. The assumption being that there is Muslim rule and then there is British rule and the two are similar. So this is something which is very clear that Gandhi could see that no, it is not Hindu-Muslim conflict that we are talking about. Please don't show these slides. They are meant to be at one time and I'll just ask for them. Thank you. In 1940, in a correspondence with Jinnah, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the leader of the Muslim party, who had just made an announcement about Pakistan, the resolution had been passed in 1940. So to him, Gandhi makes it very clear that Islam and Hinduism are not religions in the strict sense, and it is a dream that the Hindus and Muslims can ever evolve a common nationality. This view, he said, was totally wrong. And very importantly, this is Jinnah's view. Jinnah had said this, that Islam and Hinduism are different nationalities, not just religions. And Gandhi countered this by saying no. And this is a very important statement of his, which we need to remember today when the word Hindu is being defined in a certain way. Gandhi reminded people that Muslims and Christians in India were converts from Hinduism or descendants of converts. And he said they do not cease to belong to their provinces because of a change of faith. Right? Very important for us to remember this today. In 1947, when riots were happening all over the country and India seemed to be on the road hurtling towards partition, Gandhi says, this is in June 1947, he said, religion is no test of nationality. It's a personal matter between man and his God. In the sense of nationality, he said, they are Indians first and Indians last, no matter what religion they possess. I think so many of these statements, the reason I'm quoting is because the nuance of his words is very important. If I was to paraphrase it, it would not come out like that at all. Another big cobweb you often find, those of you who have read anything on Gandhi, people talk, philosophers in particular, talk a lot about the Hindu roots of his philosophical worldview, right? Or of his life, that it all boiled down to his belief in Hinduism. And very often, even the word which is used is the Vaishnav Jain tradition specifically. So whether it is Bhikkhu Parekh, I'm not going into others, but for example, Gandhi, I don't know if you know this, but used fasting as a political weapon, right? In order to put influence or put pressure on his opponents. And he had about 8 fasts approximately. And when I was looking closely, right now what I'm talking of today is from a book which I hope I should finish soon, called Gandhi's Last Years. And it covers the period from after Quit India to his assassination. And there is a very famous fast of his in February 1943. Gandhi, after giving the call for Quit India, do or die, was locked up in jail. And he was helpless because the government was making it out in the propaganda those days that he was a minion, or he was on the side of the Japanese, he was a traitor. And, there was all this kind of propaganda which was going on. And feeling very helpless, not being able to do anything from within jail, he decides to go on a fast, right? The idea being to, somehow or the other get mobilize people, and, there was this kind of inert thing. And here it's very interesting. When he writes about his fast, or you may have heard of Pyare Lal. Pyare Lal was his very close secretary, confidant, who wrote a lot. Whatever Gandhi used to say, he was the one who wrote it down, a kind of scribe. Now, Pyare Lal and Gandhi both at different points talk about the way of the cross. We've just finished Easter. The cross, of course, is Jesus, the cross of Jesus, the crucifixion of Jesus. And what does Gandhi say? It's very interesting. Gandhi says, fasting cannot be undertaken mechanically. One such act of perfect sacrifice would suffice for the whole world. Such is held to be the example of Jesus. He's himself talking about it. The idea is, he says, that you appropriate to yourself and assimilate the essence of his sacrifice, that is, Jesus' sacrifice, symbolically represented by the bread and wine of the Eucharist. A completely innocent man offered himself as a sacrifice for the good of others. He's talking about the sacrifice of Jesus, including his enemies, and became the world's ransom. It was a perfect act. It is finished were the last words of Jesus, and we have the testimony of his 4 disciples as to its authenticity. You may have heard about a phrase from Lord Mountbatten, the last Viceroy of India, where he described Gandhi as a one-man boundary force. He said that in Punjab, there's a boundary force known as the Punjab Boundary Force, which was set up But in Calcutta, there was peace on 15th August and beyond, because Gandhi was in Calcutta with Shuravardi, there, and staking his life for peace. So in this fast of August, September 1947, again, what does Gandhi say? How does he describe what he's doing? He says, God has at least given me to work and die for communal peace. I fast for the restoration of communal harmony. Again, you may have heard of his last fast. A few days before he was killed, on the 13th of January, he embarks on a fast. There's communal rioting and violence in Delhi, and the idea is to bring about communal peace. And what does he say? Again, going on a fast, Gandhi says, I embarked on the fast in the name of truth, whose familiar name is God. The very simple statement that I'm making here is that we need to see why Gandhi is referring to the Christian example of the crucifixion of Jesus, and not to the Jain monks who fasted to death, or broader Hindu beliefs that saw fasting as one of the ways to the realization of the self. In many of the works on Gandhi that I've read, as I said, it is this Vaishnav Jain tradition, particularly the reference to his mother, who would fast during what is known as the Chaturmas, the 4 months during Savan, where the food intake goes down, etc. And that is what it is understood as. So, whereas I think that that's what I said, a historically nuanced picture of Gandhi's ideas is what I'm pushing for, that it may have been there earlier in his life, but by the 40s, the more mature Gandhi, somebody who's seen all faiths, etc., clearly, for him now, the fasting, his fasts are being, he understands himself, plus he presents them to the world as being influenced by Christ's sacrifice and redemption. So for Gandhi, fasting is a kind of penance for the wrongs committed in the world as such. And this connection between the individual practice of ahimsa, his practice of ahimsa, of non-violence, which he gave so much importance to, and the way we connect it with the moral terrain of public life. In his worldview, I feel must be located within the Christian sources also that he so evocatively highlights at this point in his life. I must move on to Noakhali. Otherwise, there's a lot of interesting other stuff on the Christianity part, but that can be another time. Now, if there was one place which preoccupied Gandhi in the last year of his life, it was Noakhali. How many of you have heard about Noakhali? Do you know where it is? Where? Where? Okay, anyone else? Okay, what is now Bangladesh? It was situated in the south of the vast delta, crisscrossed by the Ganga and the Brahmaputra before they pour into the sea. And in 1946, we are going back that far, it was a remote place in the furthest division of Bengal, namely Chittagong, and very difficult to access, especially after the rains. Now, since the time of World War II, the Bengal famine you may have heard of, the terrible famine, since then and the war, troubles had meant that there was a lot of economic deprivation, a lot of economic trouble in this area, which then took a communal form in the sense that the class divide and the community divide kind of collapsed. The Hindu landlords who were in a minority and a large majority population of poor Muslim peasants. So riots break out. There's been Calcutta before that in August. There's been, and after that we have the entire kind of reign of terror spreading to Noakhali and Tipura. Today we call it Tripura, but the colonial name was Tipura. And what does Gandhi do? Gandhi gets up from New Delhi, fed up with the negotiations with the British, what you know as the cabinet mission talks, etc., which are not going anywhere. And he goes traveling by boat, steamer, very complicated ways. He reaches Noakhali. And the riots were on a very huge scale. Just to give you an idea that they were in 120 villages of 4 thanas, affecting a population of 90,000 Hindus, 70 villages in Chandpur and Faridganj thanas in Tripura, Hindu population of 40,000. These were besieged by large Muslim mobs. Have you heard of Bardoli? When we talk about Gandhi, the word or a place Bardoli comes. Or we think about Sardar Patel and the word Bardoli comes, right? Bardoli it's in the Surat district of Gujarat, where an experiment for civil disobedience had been tried out before Gandhi started it on an all India scale. So this was in 28. So just as Bardoli had been a site for a prayog experiment, a laboratory, similarly, Noakhali was described by Gandhi as a karm bhumi. Karma bhumi meaning an area of his work. That's where. And in what sense does he call it a karm bhumi? Gandhi says that my ahimsa and satyagraha, popularized among the people, have brought us to a stage where now the British are being forced to go. So satyagraha has worked as far as the anti-imperialist movement is concerned. That is Gandhi's idea. But, and it's a big but, he feels, ahimsa or satyagraha, passive resistance, civil disobedience, whatever name you use for what he was doing, his political practice, Gandhi felt that he had failed or his method had failed as far as communal harmony went. That's why the British were going, but there was rioting, there was communal violence, right? So for him, the challenge was, so I'm just using the original words that he used. He called it a karm bhumi, and elsewhere he uses the word pilgrimage, right? So again, please see the sense of the religious imagery also that there is, which is part of his life. It's not something which is separate, the two selves, the public and the private. Now, can we just take a look? There are slides 2 to 7. Can you just show them one by one? This is Gandhi on his way to Noakhali. He's in a railway compartment, right? And this is, of course, the national, the Congress flag with the charkha, which is there. Can we have the next one? Again, arriving at one of the railway stations in Noakhali district. Can we go a bit slower? Yeah. So you can see the kind of the numbers, the crowds which are coming to greet him there. Next one. This is a very interesting slide. I don't know whether you can see it very clearly, but there is a gentleman in uniform behind Gandhi. Yes? And he's a police officer, and his name was, he was a Irish or Scot, Mick Kinnerney. And later on, in 1950s, he writes about this, his days with Gandhi in a very interesting way. So he was deputed to make sure that Gandhi was, was not up to too much trouble by the government, but he ended up becoming a follower of Gandhi. So can we have the next one? This is Gandhiji at a prayer meeting. You've heard of his prayer meetings. Gandhi did not address like Nehru would address a meeting, like what we call a political meeting. For Gandhi, the prayer meeting was the political meeting. Again, please see the way the life is interwoven. So you can see this is in Noakhali. He stayed there incidentally for 4 months, doesn't go back. Can we have the next one? So you can see him there. Now, which slide was this? Any idea? Oh, you can make her. Thank you. Then we'll have 7 also. Yeah. So this is a hand-drawn map of his Padyatra. He goes around these villages. You can see the one which is marked, right? Over almost a month, every night he would stop in a village. And initially, they had made, his followers had made a bamboo hut for him, which they would fold and he would carry. And the first day when he saw that, he was so angry. He said, just take it away, I mean, this is not like I'm some, like a bridegroom is the word he used. And that we are having, a party every night. And he used to insist on staying in the house of the poorest person in the village. So this map is there in the files also, which I saw, but it's also now taken and they've blown it up, and you will be really interested to know that there is a Gandhi ashram still were functioning very well in Noakhali in Bangladesh, run by a Hindu director, Mr. Saha, I think now. I'll give you his name in a minute. So is that 7? Yeah, so just wait now. I'll tell you when we think. So I was able to go there after about 20 years of trying to go. And I made a visit in 2019. So can we have 8, 9, 10, 11? So this is the East Bengal countryside, the pukur, the pond, which would be there typically, a path at the side. Can we have the next one? A path, just to give an idea about, how green and dense it was. Can we have the next one? See, the house is still, I took this photograph, I know it's not taken very well, but if you look at it's just a hut made of strips of what we call tin. Like it's just a tin hut. So at that time also, we were told in 1946, this was the simple hut in which the peasants lived. And even today, there are hardly any pakka houses except in the slightly bigger villages. It's still a very, very backward and poor area. And there should be one more, 11. Yeah, that's just me sitting outside a small shop. So is that 11? Okay, so we just wait, not very many more. Now, the first visit that I made was to Sri Rampur, where Gandhi had stayed in isolation for 43 days. The gentleman is in his late 70s, to recall. He likened his action, why was he staying there, to that of a wise gardener who tries to raise one seedling properly instead of broadcasting seeds to the wind. Having nurtured one plant, he said, then the process could be multiplied elsewhere. Another method that he uses, which is very important, is that he puts himself to as much inconvenience as possible. His hope is that by this way he will gain entry into the hearts of the Muslims. Okay, let me explain this. At one point, he had an entourage. He had his grandnieces, Manu and Abha. He had a typewriter, stenographer. He had a interpreter, N.K. Bose, very famous anthropologist from Calcutta University, who accompanied him. So there were a good few people, to look after his creature comforts. So at one point, after about a month or so, he decides, no. So denying himself any comfort, any help except the minimum, he sends away all his associates and starts to sleep in a house whose walls were charred. Charred is burnt, right? They were completely. Slide 12. Okay. Now, that's the picture that I have of the charred house. He handled his letters himself. He used to write hundreds of letters every day and receive them also. From 3 in the night to 7 in the morning is when he would do his letter writing. And looking after his massage, his bath, his meals, minimal help, just 2 people with him. Everybody else had been sent away. The first person that we met, I had my student with me, was Abul Kalam. Can we have the slide? So this was the gentleman. He was 85-year-old, as you can see, blue, bare-chested, wearing a blue check lungi. And he recalled the prayer meetings of Gandhiji, where in the area of Sri Rampur, he started to sing for us the Ram Dhun. That's Raghupati Raghav Raja Ram, Patit Pavan Sita Ram. This song, which is known as the Ram Dhun, the invocation of Ram, he could still remember, having been there as a very small child. Gandhi used to recite this dhun, and then other people in his group used to sing it. And it's very interesting that on the one hand, you see, when we are talking about building communal harmony, he was doing 2 things. He was trying to help, or rather he was helping the Hindus, particularly the Hindu women, who had been raped, possibly married, converted, worse, whatever, to overcome their fear of their neighbors, right? And to stay on, not go off. So one was that. And the other side, he was also working to gain the trust of the Muslims, simultaneously doing that. Very often, why I'm underlining it, very often there are situations in which you go, there's one victim party, one group which is there, and you work for their whatever there is, right? But here was this very complex situation. So when Gandhi reaches Noakhali along with his group of followers, I'm just describing a little bit here. Pyare Lal, his secretary, wrote, the faces of the victims were pinched and pale, and there was a scared, haunted animal look in their eyes. A woman came to Gandhi's prayer meeting with a long bone from the body of her husband who had been murdered. Most Hindus had left their villages. Those who had stayed on had paid the price of conversion. Marriage, like as a euphemism, forsaking of cultural identity, and most terrifying of all, silence. We can do no better than quote Pyarilal's account of Gandhi's visit to a deserted house which had seen many killings. When they entered, the first thing they came upon was the exercise book of a child, of a school-going child, a young boy who had been murdered, they were told, and the books were still open. So it had been very recently. And what does Pyarelal write? Pyarelal says, those that were not killed or did not run away were said to have been converted, including a deaf mute who, by piteous signs, showed the tuft of hair in a piece of cloth which had been removed from his head and to which he still clung. The gestures of this dumb boy, writes Pyarelal, were more expressive of the pain of conversion than any figures, thousands, etc., etc. In this way, there are other descriptions of the villages that they go to. Pyarelal writes, Gandhiji stopped dead and stood in reverential silence for a few minutes as he came upon broken images lying scattered on the footpaths and among the ruins of the temple. There are 2 slides here. Sorry, not very good. It's because there are old books from which I am taking these photos. Hopefully, I should be, by the time I get to publishing the book, I should have some better pictures. But you can just see him coming down, and that's outside a temple, a ruined temple. There's 15 and 16 slides. This is a temple which I came upon. Somebody took me to see it, that look, it was now a cement depot, the inside. But this on the top was still there, so you can make out that at some point it was a temple. Is that 16? Yeah? 15. So can we have 16 then? Is it 16? So this is the bottom half of that photo, This is the disused temple that there is. It was the cry of outraged womanhood. Those were the words which were used by Gandhi when he was going to Noakhali. Is there slide 17? So this is from the book, I took it, the caption. You can hardly make out, but that's a woman who's at Gandhi's feet. She's totally bent, right? Can you make that out, right? So he's coming to him and he's just shown him the body of her husband and, etc. There would be many such pictures. This is just one of them. Is that 17? Then we'll just stop there for now. And one of the things which Gandhi did was to get the government of Bengal to declare that the so-called marriages were bogus, that they were not to be any, after a certain point of time, the marriages were forced marriages, and so a declaration was made that they would have no validity. Now, what I found personally very interesting, because in my own way I've been dealing with since the 1980s, as a teacher, I can call it a word, maybe a secular activist, if you like, in some way, having to deal with eruptions of communalism, eruptions of communal violence in our society, and what to do with it. So Gandhi's answer to this assault on religious freedom in Noakhali, which I'm talking about right now, was very interestingly to uphold the right to practice one's religion. He doesn't say religion is, we should erase religion. Religion puts people against each other. No. He goes there and says you have the right to practice your religion. Women of Bengal from this area, they were used to wearing certain symbols of their marriage, marital status. One was sindoor, right? Vermilion, which is put in the hair. The other was bangles, the white and red bangles, the shankar bangles as they are called. So these had been removed, obviously broken up. Women were not doing, they were, not coming out. And Gandhi's going there. And there's another cultural practice known as uludhwani, which is that when you welcome somebody, there's a certain, sound which is made. So a sound of welcome and festivity. It's very interesting what Gandhi and his followers, it's not just him. There's Bibi Amtus Salam, there's Manu Gandhi, there's Abha, there's Sushila Nair, there's a whole group of people with him. JP's wife, Prabhavati, a lot of people are coming and going. What are they doing? They are going among the Hindus, among the people of Noakhali who are affected and saying, you must have the courage to stay in your homes. You must have the courage to practice your faith. Pyarelal writes about how they all adopt one village each. That's the kind of pattern, right? And they say, get the people who are affected by the riots, that you come back, you stay here, and we are like a hostage for your security. That is, first we will die, only then somebody will can do anything to you, and nothing will happen as long as Gandhi is here. So it's very interesting how getting people to, why am I emphasizing this? I'm emphasizing this as a kind of, I would say, born again secularist. That is, as a young person, and that may be true of many people here, would understand this better. In our youth, it could be the influence of Marxism, it could be the influence of many other. The idea of secular was that there is no place for religion, right? There is that religion is what is keeping people apart. So for me, as I said, at a certain age in my life, to read this, to come across it was it was part of a self-reflection also on my own understanding and my own practice, because I could see how, for the people concerned, how important these things were. The sounds of the kirtan, which the women people did, the Hari Sankirtan, it's called there. Those sounds coming back, people, starting to practice their own faith. I have a section on brahmacharya, which I'm going to leave out, not because of any reasons that, we can't deal with it in a mature way here or anything of the kind, but simply lack of time as far as my presentation goes. I'll be happy to take any question on it. I was mentioning to you when I showed you the map, right, that Gandhi goes on a padyatra for about 40 days or so. And there's slide 18, if we can have that. Maybe it's the same map. Possible it's the same map. Is there another slide? So this is that's all. So this is the classic. You'll find it on this photo of Gandhi you would have seen. But why am I showing it? Is there another one after that? No, just go back. This is the classic photograph of Gandhi. This is a one bamboo pole bridge in his late 70s. And when I went in 2019. I'm 65 now. What would it be? 5 years ago, I tried crossing on that bridge with my shoes. Proper, nice Skechers shoes, which should have, I should have been able to walk across. But this is Gandhiji at this age, crossing this. These were the only ways in this paths in this area. But, it is something to be, as I said, noted. The tenacity and commitment of the man. Starts off, why does he undertake the padyatra? He's been there for 1 month or more. but the Hindus are responding. But he was very disappointed by the reaction of the Muslim peasants. What Gandhi wanted to say, why does he send away everybody, stays on his own, and then he starts the Padyatra? He said that I would like to stay in the house. It was a kind of challenge that will a Muslim offer him his house, a Muslim family will offer Gandhi a place to stay at night. For him, he made that a kind of litmus test of communal relations, right? He intended to go among the Muslims unprotected, to live in their midst, and by showing his trust in them, help remove their distrust. Muslim villagers started to atone for, that's how Gandhi understands it, for their initial hostility. I haven't mentioned this, but there were many instances in the beginning where Gandhi was very frontally opposed by the youngsters, particularly belonging to the Muslim League or those who were provoked by them. When people saw that Gandhi used to walk barefoot, here he's wearing, I think, rough sandals or chappals of the kind he had. But at one point, he gives up his chappals and he starts to walk barefoot. What did the Pyarelal writes the next morning in his diary? He says, the path was covered with briars, not just briars, but deliberately soiled with excreta and glass. So, I'm just quoting some of these things to just give you a feel or a sense of what it was. Before he sets out on his Padyatra, the famous song of Rabindranath Tagore, Akla Cholo Re, right? Some of you may know the song, but at least I'm sure most of you have heard the song, which is Tagore's song all about if no one heeds your call, then walk alone, right? Moshumi, do you want to recite it? Do you know the song? Please. Why not? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. No. Very nice. Thank you. Another song or another hymn, which was his favorite, was Vaishnav Janto Tene Kahiye Peer Parai Jane Re. Again, look at the creative interpretation of, I can only say dharma, or whatever is it. Gandhi asked his grandniece, who used to sing the song, to substitute Christian Jan and Muslim Jan every time Vaishnav Jan was repeated in the song. So first time they would say Vaishnav Jan to tene kahiye, then next time it would be Christian Jan to tene kahiye, then Muslim Jan. So there was this eclectic, or I think I better not use any words, because the use of these words spoils what there is, absolutely. It's our words which spoil it. Slide 19 and 20, this should be the last two. Yeah, so this is walking with his grandnieces. You might recall the last picture of Gandhi, which is always there, before he was assassinated. Him walking in Birla Bhavan, walking with his shoulders on the two grandnieces, the same two grandnieces, and it's not very visible, but at the feet you can see skulls, bones, charred uh, parts of things around. Okay. Just one thing I did want to mention, since I talked a lot about the Hindus and reactions, and I mentioned that there was hostility from among Muslims to begin with, and but there were many instances where, for example, there was a Maulvi, a Muslim preacher, and he asked Gandhi to come and stay in his house. And he even told the local Muslims that to welcome Gandhi, he said, this Maulvi, he said, Gandhi has come to free us Muslims of the stain of having shed Hindu blood. So that was also there, is as part of the discourse. There were occasions on which Hindus and Muslims would join in singing the Ramdhun. They were from the side of Gandhi's group. There was also a sensitivity to the religious there was a sensitivity to the religious sensibilities of the Muslims. For example, there was, I remember Pyarelal writing about this, that normally there would be a tabla accompaniment, right? And in the month, this was not Ramzan then, but there was some holy period for Muslims, and the tabla accompaniment was removed. So, there were many ways. That's where I talk about what I'm calling the, creative kind of interpretation, or creative secular / religious practice. In Nandigram, one of the villages there, don't confuse it with Nandigram, which is in West Bengal, but the Muslims promised when Gandhiji came there that they will defend the Hindu temple in the area, and they will rebuild it, what had been recently destroyed. So multi-faith prayer meetings, etc., etc. And of course, in the meetings, there were always readings from, as many of you may know about Gandhi's prayer meetings, readings from the Quran, from Bible, Zendavasta, and the Gita. Now, the next part, I'm try and go through it a little briefly, maybe just share something with you, that what I found, I find from a present day perspective very important, is how Gandhi stood up for Hindus without, to my mind, encouraging or fostering Hindu communalism, right? A task which was very difficult, mind you, because he was not the only Hindu in doing something in Noakhali. Associations or organizations like Hindu Mahasabha and another organization known as Bharat Sevashram Sangha, also of a Hindu communal nature, they were engaged in doing relief work among Hindus there. They had also rushed from Calcutta and other places. But the way they did relief work was to polarize the communal situation rather than to bring people together. Very interestingly, when I was writing the part on Gandhi's assassination, I came across a name there, Vishnu Karkare. Vishnu Karkare, if anybody has read anything on Gandhi's assassination, he was one of the co-conspirators of Gandhi's murder, along with V.D. Savarkar, Godse, and others later on. He was a Karyakarta, he was of the Hindu Mahasabha from Maharashtra, from Ahmednagar. And he came with money and with bags of sindoor. The idea being that the people of India are sending this sindoor, which is a symbol of a Hindu woman's marital status, they are sending this to Noakhali. See, again, it's that what is being pushed is, as I said, a Hindu communal identification rather than what Gandhi was doing. So, what I'm trying to say in a very simple way is that you can be Hindu without being Hindu communal, right? That may be what people like me were spend their lives doing, which is not being religious or, is not necessary. You can be secular while being religious. Gandhi was a great example of that, as we know. And we also know the opposite example of Savarkar, the proponent of Hindutva behind so much of Hindu nationalism and all the things there. He was an atheist. He didn't practice Hinduism. Jinnah was not a believing Muslim, the person who championed for a homeland for Muslims. So it's very important to recall that this is the political instrumentality or the usage of religion in politics, and distinguish it from what might one call authentic religious practice, which can be done in a secular way, right? That the two are not contradictory as we have assumed it to be, because we have had a certain type of understanding of secularism. I have managed to spend a lot of time on explaining things. Would have done better if I had, just read this paper very quickly, which is what I intended to do. Let me just see if I can sum it up a little, because if there's, I would like that there is some time for discussion. Basically, if I can just say that in the next two sections, what I have done is, I've called it secularism in a religious mode, ? And a look at other moments of rupture in society, 1984, 1993, 2024. And what I've tried to do here was to see that what Gandhi was doing in Noakhali, what I'm calling this religious mode of secular practice, can it help us to understand communal conflict situations? Can it help us to understand this better, the situation better? And I was using some examples from 84, from the anti-Sikh riots in Delhi. I was a young student like you. Then I spent 3 months in Sultanpuri working among areas where there were a lot of Sikhs had been killed and houses looted, and there were the widows there. And we couldn't understand, at least I didn't understand at that time, at that point of time, why so many Sikh men preferred to die or be killed rather than cut off their hair or lose their turbans. These symbols, it seemed to me, coming from a very rational kind of position, that, when you're up against something like that, why are you clinging to, what is clearly only a religious symbol? And when I read Gandhi, I understood this, because Gandhi understood why it was important, the sindoor for the woman, the uludhwani, that these questions were, which were important. And basically what I'm saying in the end is that how in India, what we call secular practice of political parties or groups has mostly been even what we understand as Gandhi. It has been what we call bhai bhai approach, right? There's a Eid Milan, and then you have a Holy Milan. Again, a lot of this, some of this paper is also, as I said, self-reflexive in the sense I am also trying to look at my own practice. After 84, in 93, after the demolition of the Babri Masjid, there was a whole group of people, varied people from different religions. We had, formed a small group in Okla, Muslims, Hindus, Christians, and, the Muslims were invited over to our houses for the Holi, and we went over for Eid. But what I'm saying is, it was still part of what I'm calling this kind of bhai-bhai approach, where somewhere religion was still not okay, right? There was still a discomfort, I think, was religion. So I end by talking about two positions on this. It's not really a debate, but two positions on this. Right after the Bhumi Pujan, I think it was 2021, of the Ram Mandir at Ayodhya, and there was Yogendra Yadav, political scientist, theorist, and there was Pratap Bhanu Mehta, who likes to call himself, I think, a political philosopher, perhaps. And they wrote, both of them, in the newspapers, and taking two completely different opinions. Yogendra Yadav's position was that secularism was defeated because it failed to speak the language of religion, right? I'm quoting from him. Failed to learn or speak the language of our religions. It mocked Hinduism instead of developing a new interpretation of Hinduism, right? And Pratap Bhanu Mehta, from also a tradition of political philosophy theory, says the idea that taking religion seriously as a political matter will solve the communal problem. That's Yogendra's position, right? He says that the idea that taking religion seriously as a political matter will solve the communal problem is a historically dubious proposition. So what is Mehta saying? Mehta is saying all we need is to preserve the conditions of religious freedom for all, right? Let each person discover what he calls the law of their own being. So religious freedom is, I think, what Gandhi also was talking about. And at the end, then, can one sum up something? Is there a conclusion? And I would say, sadly, no. There isn't. I cannot say that this is Gandhi's secular religious practice, and here is a model like we can see with anti-imperialism, the movements, right? We wrote, I was his youngest student, but I had the privilege of writing India's struggle for independence with Professor Bipin Chandra and a couple of his colleagues. But that was on the basis of interviews we had done over maybe about 1,500 interviews we did with activists in the freedom struggle. And it was from their sense that, we talked about what was called the strategy of the movement, etc., etc. So can one talk about a Gandhian model of communal harmony which we can adopt? No. The reason for me, it's not just that, of course, I have spent most of my life living in the 1940s, right? It sounds dreadful, but it's true that I was sitting in a very quiet place and writing some of this about 20 years ago. And I wrote a check, which I signed 1947, and I actually sent it through somebody to the bank, and they came right back and they said, has your so-and-so person kind of, lost it sort of thing. But anyway, and I've done it often. I've signed 19 for. So, you live in those worlds, etc. also. But as I said, it's the image still is that one, of Gandhi on that unsteady bridge, one bamboo pole, unsteady bridge that he was crossing. And so there are no easy answers, but I do feel that by reading him, and I've gone back to reading him, the same part of his life, let's say. Every time you go back, there's another layer of meaning. And I say this as a person who I was so critical of Gandhi at your age. Believe me, I was asked by my teacher, Professor Bipin Chandra, to go and he said, from your fellowship money, GRF or whatever, why don't you go and buy Gandhi's collected work? 100 volumes were, in Khadi, you could buy, for some very little, few thousand rupees. And I read some of them, and I used to be maddened by the idea. I said, here is this man, is he a political leader? Out of 20 letters, believe me, 7 are about nature cure, 2 will be about mud packs, another 3 will be about celibacy or brahmacharya. You can, as a young person, it is very maddening. It's totally maddening. But I'll stop there. So there is hope. So even if today you feel, oh my God, this old man, what was he up to? There's no sympathy. In time, he grows on you, believe me. I'll end with that. Thank you. Thank you for your patience, sir.
So thank you, madam, for your very insightful lecture. And of course, it is she focused on the many aspects of the Gandhi, and mostly from the historical point of view, the last, how it is religion related to the everyday social practice and also politics. One strong point she tried to emphasize that many people try to read Gandhi as a religious, and he tried to talk about, even the many people try to talk it is anti-secular. She tried to make a attempt that thing how Gandhi is a very much, you can look at his life and practices, even though it is carried from the religion, it is mostly religious or secular practices. One can see in every aspect of his life, and very particularly in relation to the religion. He's walked as a barefooting spiritual soldier, and also is he make a point that we are in the disturbed times, we are the hostage for your security. Even though being a Hindu, he tried to say that things the secular credentials can be seen. We are hostage for your security. That is one. And next point, she tried to make a point that one that is rather than carrying with she very much emphasized that walk alone, ekla chalori. Let us walk alone rather than carried away with the mad crowd. There it is makes the importance of the Gandhi, where we can identify, even though is a man walking alone, and it has own potential, it is there, that we can realize in a context where the people like the way religion, the secularism got defeated, or of the present movement itself mocked the religion, even though in the name of religion people try to talk about is a valorizing the Hinduism, but in fact it is a religion got mocked or in fact duped by the whatever the forces it is there. Then there's a need to be preserved. There is a Pratap Bhanamehta, she mentioned that when there's a preserve the condition for the religious freedom for all. In this context, the way still the Gandhi can be hope to overcome the situation where we are caught up in a crossroad, where there is no way out, even forget about others, and being a Hindu also, it is no way to look at a kind of the path where you can meet other friends. And this is a contest where we can see the importance of the Gandhi. And I believe this kind of, like, you have your own viewpoints might be there, definitely. Much more good reflections on the Gandhi, one might have it from their life experiences, and also from their kind of academic training. Now it is open for discussion. Before that, I request Professor Amit, Madam, can reflect any points you want to